In but a few days, it will be Christmas, a time to celebrate the birthday of the Prince of Peace. But there is one group of Americans who will not celebrate the joy of Christmas this year. Outraged by the murder of 6 children in Birmingham, Alabama last September, they are urging Americans to refrain from buying Christmas gifts as an act of moral protest. Ossie Davis, spokesman for the Association of Artists for Freedom.
We choose Christmas as a time to present a moral alternative to the people of this country to solve the problem by means less than those of bitterness, anger, and self-destruction. And therefore, I think what we are involved in is much more broader than an economic boycott or bringing pressure to bear on the powers that be to show them how deeply hurt and insulted we are. No, this is a moral call to arms. We must look fully at what happened in Birmingham on that Sunday and read correctly the handwriting on the wall, or maybe there will be no Christmas next year or the year after for anybody, white, black, children, or anybody else.
National Educational Television presents At Issue, a weekly commentary on events and people in the news. At issue this week, the Christmas boycott. The proposal by some Negro leaders to achieve civil rights through the pocketbook rather than the conscience. This season, a group of Negro artists, among them writer James Baldwin and actors Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis, are urging that no Christmas gifts be bought in protest against the violence in Birmingham, which took the lives of 6 children in September. Executive Secretary of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Roy Wilkins, disagrees.
In fact, I have not waited for Christmas to make my feelings known about Birmingham. And personally, I do not see how I can visit upon a merchant who may be a supporter of the civil rights cause, an employer of Negroes, a humanitarian, a man who has done everything required of a good and conscientious and humanity-loving citizen, how I can visit upon him this Christmas revenge for what occurred in Birmingham, for what some thoughtless hoodlums and some murderous and viciously motivated persons did to 4 little girls.
Well, this is the question which I have personally faced, and the committee itself has faced also. Granted that there might be some pain in a Christmas in which people reversed their normal habits and did not go to the marketplace. I do not know of any instance in the history of a person or of a time or of a people where moral growth did not require some kind of painful self-denial and sacrifice to become meaningful in the lives of people. Certainly, it is not our intention to punish the merchants, to make things hard for anybody, merely for the sake of being mean and being vindictive and withholding our support as a gesture of defiance and vituperation against the powers that be.
I am to say to a merchant in the Bronx in New York, or in Queens, or in Amherst, Massachusetts, or in Duluth, Minnesota, or in Seattle, Washington, I hold you responsible for what happened in Birmingham. Personally, I'm unable to come to that point of view. I've tried, but I can neither do it intellectually, honestly, nor can I do it honestly, emotionally.
The economic boycott is not new in the alchemy of American Revolution. The editor of the Wall Street Journal, Vermont Royster, talks about its implications past, present, and future.
The relationship between economic power and political power has been a close one since ancient times. Economic power was one of the weapons used by the barons at Runnymede and by parliaments in their struggles against lords and nobles for political liberty. An economic boycott played its own role in our own revolution when people refused not only to buy English tea, but dumped it into Boston Harbor. So it's hardly surprising that the Negro people should turn now to economic power as a means of expressing their protest against laws and customs that limit their liberties. In refusing to pay money for a bus ride, or to buy particular goods from a particular store. The forms of neither the protest nor the pressure are in any way unprecedented. And the Negro people in America do have economic power.
That economic power is the estimated $23.5 billion yearly income of the American Negro. As the Negro bent on boycott says, if you can't appeal to the whites through their conscience, do it through their pocketbook. A church in Nashville, Tennessee. The scene has been repeated throughout the country since 1956.
Really, until we get some further plans worked out to hand you that we're working on now, it's perfectly in order if you just feel like making a complete sacrifice of it and just stay at home.
Roy Wilkins on the anatomy of a boycott, not only in the South, but in Chicago, Philadelphia, and New York.
I think it's evident that boycotts must be carefully planned, that they must have a moral base, that they must be used only as a last resort after negotiations have failed, because they're a dangerous weapon. I think they have every right to be used because the Negro has been shamefully treated economically in this country.
While the boycotts have been used most often and most successfully against the discriminatory hiring practices, its first impact was made in securing a simple equal right, the right to sit on a bus wherever there's a seat. In 1957, the Negro citizens of Montgomery, Alabama, led by Martin Luther King, won this right after boycotting the bus company for 381 days. Carpools provided the transportation, church meetings the spirit.
The carpool and all we have done in this struggle continues.
The success of Negro boycotts can be calculated in terms of the amount of money Negroes have to spend, their importance to the economy, and the way advertisers appeal to them, as reflected in the pages and policies of Ebony, a national monthly which has been described as the Negro family's life magazine. Its editor and publisher is John H. Johnson.
Well, I think the Negro is important to the economy because his spending power has increased tremendously during the past several years to a point now where he has approximately $23.5 billion a year, which he is able to put into the economy. And I think this helps to, of course, increase the general health and welfare of the economy.
Is the Negro consumer different than other consumers?
No, I would say he is not really different. I think that because of environmental influences, he may sometimes react differently. I think, for example, a man who is, and most of us are primarily from the South, we're likely to make more purchases in fields where baking is necessary. We will perhaps eat more bread than most people. We may eat more stable goods than most people. So I think that our purchasing habits may be different, but they are based on environmental influences and, of course, have nothing to do with race. We tend to emulate people that we know and associate with. For example, and I don't think I don't think this has a great deal to do with race. For example, I worked for a Negro man when I first got out of college, and this man wore white shirts all the time. So it was always my ambition to wear white shirts. And I think Negro people who have worked for rich people that have become accustomed to quality merchandise. They become accustomed to eating good food. In some cases, they have been given clothes that were no longer useful to the owner of the house, and these clothes perhaps were of a higher quality, so they've gotten used to quality. And as soon as they earn their own money or enough money, they tend to want to have the same kind of quality that they are accustomed to.
Professor Henry Allen Bullock of Texas Southern University has criticized the use of Negro models in ads as condescending. Here's Mr. Johnson's reaction to that.
Well, I would say our experience has not borne this out, and obviously many of our ads have used Negro models, and ebony circulation has doubled in the last 5 years, so this is hardly a testimonial to any kind of disapproval which our readers have given to the kind of advertising which we're running. And, I think that if ads using Negro models could be run in all publications, this would be desirable. But if they're not run in all publications, then I see nothing wrong with them being run in Negro publications. For example, no one accuses the general media of being segregated simply because all the models are white. And I don't see why anyone should accuse us of being segregated if most of our models are Negro.
Mr. Johnson was asked for his reaction to an ad in the National Magazine.
Gee, I have a good reaction. This is a beautiful girl who is exhibiting good feeling and life and youth, and although she's dark in skin tones, I don't think this really has anything to do with the effectiveness of the ad.
You're in tune with your personality stations, WCHB AM, Inkster, Michigan, and WCHD FM, Detroit, serving Greater Detroit land.
WCHB Radio.
Frank Seymour, station manager, WCHB.
Well, we have an operation here that beams primarily to over 655,000 Negroes in the area that our signal covers. It's approximately 151,000 family units. And it's an essential part, very necessary and vital part of Detroit's economy. There is over $700 million a year spent by these Negroes. The statistics involved show that one of every $5 spent is spent by a Negro here. WCHB was founded in 1956. It went on the air in November. And Dr. Haley Bell and Dr. Wendell Cox, two dentists, founded the station and are the only owners. It's a family corporation. It's been an effective means for reaching this vast Negro audience. A simple case in hand could be homes, we'll say, in subdivisions that at this time do not have Negro residents. They advertise these Bell Acre homes. The Negro listens and knows that this is not for him. The same as perhaps a resort in Florida. Advertises, enjoy your vacation here. The Negro knows that it's not for him. So that this leaves a void that such a station as ours fills, such a medium that is directly going to the Negro market. They fill this void, there's no doubt. So I find it necessary to sell the concept of Negro medium or Negro radio.
Mr. Seymour characterized the approach used by advertisers to reach the Negro as the Amos and Andy bit. Did he still feel that way?
I certainly do, only more so. Not because it's becoming more evident that announcers are talking down to them or using Amos and Andy techniques. In fact, that's decreased. I speak of this region now. The South perhaps still has some problems in this respect. They seemingly like to talk down to the customers. Perhaps it's because it's a captive market. But I feel more so now because Negroes are attaining more of the goals to which they aspire. And approaching him the old way is just unthinkable if you want to sell your product.
Mr. Seymour was asked about status seeking by Negro wage earners.
Yes, I think anybody that consumes seeks status. He seeks to get his money's worth for what he puts out. And he likes to have the best available. The old thought of Negroes buying large cars, or let's say Cadillacs, I think that's changing now to automobiles that more conveniently suit the family's need, let's say station wagons. I believe that they are finding more outlets for using their income to bring them more of the better ways of living, the American way of life. And it's becoming diversified. They're not just lumping it all in Scotch whiskey or Cadillacs or other ostentatious displays of financial affluency.
If you want to raise a healthy baby, get him off to the right start or Carnation.
Who are the families this commercial seeks to reach? Who are the readers of Ebony? Who are some of the people who comprise the Negro economy? Dr. Samuel Byron Milton is a director of the Sumbie Hospital in Detroit, where most of his patients are Negroes. Dr. Milton is a wealthy man. When he goes home, he goes to Lincoln Park, where he fought a restrictive covenant for 2 years to gain title to his house.
I have a lovely home, and in it I have a lot of things that remind me of the happy times I've had during my life. Oh, I have so many things that when I look around, it brings back memories of the pleasures I've had, which have been rewards for the things I feel that I've done for the community in which I live and the people with whom I work. And sometimes I think they are out of proportion to the services I've given.
Dr. Milton's wife.
About 2 weeks ago, I had some very prominent visitors from Paris, France. Some very dear friends of ours, and I entertained them with a typical Creole dinner from New Orleans, which is my home, and they enjoyed it tremendously. Before they left, I had to write recipes for almost everything I served. I prepared the gumbo, and the lemon pie and the chicken was prepared by my maid.
Her opinion of boycotts?
Well, I think that down in the South, they do a lot of good. But up in this part of the country, I don't think too much of it.
And the spirit of the Christmas boycott?
Well, not really. I haven't thought too much about it. I guess perhaps because I'm too busy with my own thoughts.
This is a sunny side of the house. It's cool in the summer and warm in the winter. Yes,
Mrs. Daisy Lucas, who works as a housekeeper. She lives in Harlem.
And I've had them for over a year now. I've been here 11 years, and I live here with my 2 sisters and my nephew. I like the place, and I like the people. It's just that the house is a little run down now, but everything happens that way sometimes. Came here from Denver. I came here in 27. And Ethel and I have been very close. Oh, Ethel and I, we just talk about anything that comes in our mind, our jobs, our church, and her lodge activities. I don't care for lodges, but she does. And Gladys is very faithful. She calls me every day, once, if not twice. As I read the paper, I still can't get used to not saying President Kennedy. And I still am upset about it because he was a good man, very good. And his ideas, I liked them. He was young and he was fresh. And I string along with young people. Life has been good to me in a way. Never been rich and had a lot of money, but I've had a lot of happiness. We've learned how to live and enjoy most nearly every minute, even with our sorrow.
The Supreme Life Insurance Company of Chicago is one of the largest underwriters to the Negro population. Its president is a man Ebony called one of America's richest Negroes, Earl Dickerson.
While the market that we now have is Negro, we must use the same kind of devices in business as those people who are white organizing and running life insurance companies. Companies like Metropolitan and other companies now move into the Negro community. They have employed Negroes sometimes and whites sometimes to go into the Negro market and to sell to them their commodities. So we must, if we are going to survive, hire Negroes and whites to go into all the markets. If the whites operating life insurance companies are now coming in employing colored men to sell among colored people, why can't a company run by Negroes hire whites to sell among whites? And when the general climate is conditioned for it, so that a Negro is accepted as an equal in every sense to the whites, Negro salesmen can go into white homes just like historically white salesmen have been going into Negro homes. The day has to come. Certainly in the field of business, I know there are men in this institution here, bright, alert men, graduates of colleges we have here, for example, graduates of Yale, of Harvard, of Chicago, of Illinois, of all the Middle Western universities, University of California and so on, working in this office. Out of all of that list of men, some of them would now be called to bigger companies with wider opportunities to make money, to establish themselves as business leaders and so on, if the doors were open to them. If we could burst wide open this whole fight and bring the Negro tomorrow to equality in all phases of Negro life, in American life, tone of the community, of the community life would change. The attitude of the Negro himself toward his future would change. Once the doors are let down, this enrichment will follow. The reason my mother sent me away from the little town in Canton, Mississippi, was that the Negroes were being pushed around. She was a washerwoman. She had no way to send me to school. And the train that runs from Chicago on the Illinois Central passed through my town. And she always told me that she wanted me to go to Chicago.
Herman McRae, an art director and vice president of a New York advertising agency.
The job here I've held going into 13th year, and I've recently become a vice president of this corporation, Metagraphics. And the whole 13 years has been one of complete satisfaction on my part in terms of employment and being able to progress. And as far as this agency is concerned, it's never been at any time any feeling at all of my being Negro, anything to make me feel that I'm inferior or anything else. I've worked mainly with all my fellows that work under me, white, and I get the respect not as their boss, but as a friend. As a matter of fact, one of the clearest indications of what I'm trying to say is that when I'm here in this office, I tend to become unaware of the fact that I am a Negro. Only time that when I become a man on the street is when I get back to that feeling of I'm something less than that feeling that all Negroes obviously have. I stop by the corner department store. I think about the Christmas boycott. My wife and I have talked about it. It's basically a good idea to demonstrate, but it seems that the Negro children seems to be always the ones that suffer.
A final dialogue on the boycott, Roy Wilkins.
Form. It's known that a great many corporations have closed the doors to upper echelon employment to Negro applicants. And we found in some places in the South, even a supermarket on a retail level in the Negro district had never thought of employing Negro cashiers or checkout people. Obviously, if a supermarket in a Negro district never thought of this relatively low-level employment advancement, a corporation that makes toasters or other accessories or that sells a breakfast food doesn't make room at the top or in the middle for Negro employment. I think this will be remedied, however, because the Negro community is in no mood for the usual delay and postponement and the usual excuses. Ideally, we shouldn't have to have boycotts. Ideally, we ought to have fair treatment for all consumers, regardless of race. Of course, we don't have the ideal, and we're trying to bring it about.
Vermont Royster, Wall Street Journal.
It is not a question of whether the use of economic power is just, or even whether a boycott of stores is a proper use of that power. It is whether this particular boycott is wise. And this is no trivial question. In the past, there have been men in our country who wielded great economic power. But when they began using it, saying, "The public be damned," the people were so resentful that they rose up and struck back. The American people simply do not take kindly to the use of power when they think its use is ill-advised. This, then, is the question to be pondered by everybody. When what is needed now is the goodwill of all men toward their brothers, will that cause be helped or injured by using as the occasion for economic power the season of goodwill for all Americans?
Actress Ruby Dee, a member of the Christmas Gift Boycott Committee.
An artist is no artist who does not call to the country to listen to his soul. And you know, I'm not really particularly religious, but that's what it is. I even say the word because when one talks about God and morality and church and soul, you sound as if you're apart from dollars and cents and Madison Avenue and being an actor and wearing makeup and celebrating Christmas the way we all do. No, boycott is no part of our program. It's not, the term is not worthy of it. We are calling upon people who understand what it is to lose 4 children, to understand that we started this as a memorial to these children, not to wait until 6 million Jews were murdered in Germany. Whenever I think of that, I said, what were people doing while it came to 6 million? Must we wait for that? Must we wait till men are at each other's throats before those of us who can speak out? I pray, God, now, this sacrifice of the no shopping at Christmas, I think, is rather a small price to pay for such a deep reach into each other's hearts.
This is NET, National Educational Television.